You welcome everyone to come to Evie Unbounded. Today I have one of my close girlfriend who I just met, but somehow we just very connected. So when people say time or space doesn't matter, I really think there's a truth to that. Because when I met Sandy, who's my guest today, when she walked in Croatia, and suddenly I felt a strong connection with her.
Mm.
Um, and we just started talking. I don't even know how we started talking. Sandy, tell the audience how we met. Our love
Well,
story.
it was our love story for sure.
Yes.
I walked into a group of amazingly dynamic people and this whole event, and not knowing anyone but Tony. Right? We were
Yeah.
Tony's guest.
Tony is our mutual friend who we met,
Yes,
who we got to introduce, and that's how we
yes.
met. Yeah.
That's how we met. She was the point of connection. And I
Yes.
remember you had just come downstairs. I was in Tracy's room, who I just met like an hour before, and we were just chatting and talking and laughing.
At the airport.
And
Yes, at the airport coming.
yeah, we came in and you were just amazing. You came in and you had been meditating and you were a little disheveled. You were still in your spiritual space. And I was so enamored with like how feminine you were. And because that's my work, is like really being able to work with dynamic women and harmonizing the feminine and masculine energetics in their everyday life, not just with their romantic life, but that also is there. So I was so enamored with your cutoff jeans, and then you had like this cool rocker shirt, and I love women. I'm watching you, and you were talking about meditating. I think I think I even asked you, what's your love story with Dr. Joe? And you went,
Oh yes.
yeah, and you're like, if you know Evie, which if you're listening or watching, you know, she's like, whoa, wait a minute, repeat that again. Like, what was that? And then I said it again, and it just opened up the portal of so many other conversations. And I learned that saying. That's been a good opening line for me in so many areas. Most people think I'm talking about the romantic life, but I want to know like what lights you up. And that was the start of our just our journey that week. We had a blast together and really got deep in some really beautiful conversations.
And Sandy, you're like if I had to describe what feminine, like a woman with a feminine energy look like, honestly, you're it.
Oh,
You're it.
I received that because
Um,
it hasn't always been that way. I mean, this has been, um, I know I shared with you, I had an intervention with Tony Robbins 12 years ago where I was essentially, like to say, I was castrated. An attractive, I'll say I was an attractive woman who was walking around very protected, very dude-like, super successful in business. And I was in partnership at the time. And, I raised my hand for a question, and 4.5 hours later, Tony had me realizing that um, a lot of my success and a lot of my wealth in business was really a more of a trauma response, is what he opened up to me. He didn't actually say that, but after that intervention, I went and worked with all these different teachers around the world and wanted to understand more about it. And the more I learned to understand it, to your point, I realized that I was learning everything in my head and I hadn't really embodied a lot of it. So, that's really when, the Sacred She Method was born, because I wanted to be able to people to meet me like I met you and immediately go, wait a minute, that embodies what the feminine is, yet
mhm.
she's super strong. And so there's a way that there's a harmonization. So you just gave me such a beautiful compliment, and I received that. And I know one of the reasons why you invited me to be here is for us to talk about what exactly is receivership, because it was another one of our, oh my God, a moments, probably over ice cream.
Yeah, I mean, I would share with my audience that that was something I had a hard time with and still are, but I'm working at it, constantly.
Yeah,
At least I'm self-aware. So meeting you was like, it's almost like the universe heard me, and then like I was like, oh, how am I gonna improve myself being feminine but still being powerful? Because the whole time I thought being feminine means you are weak,
of course.
or you can't build an empire, or you know build a brand, or making the business, right? The masculine energy is supposed to be. So I was always afraid to, or think that feminine energy was almost
Yeah,
like not important or irrelevant. Yeah.
sure. Yeah. And it's
And then
interesting.
you show up.
Yeah, I show up. And yeah, and I know that for
Mhm.
me, I can always tell when a woman has done women's work because I receive them in their receivership. I witness them in are they able to receive? And the witnessing of all of us is the masculine. However, we're witnessing is actually the masculine is actually just holding space for that. So we've been able to hold space for all of you that week, even though it wasn't necessarily all a teaching moment. I think everything's a teaching moment. Witnessing you in the what I like to call defragging, and then opening yourself up like a lotus flower to like, wait a minute, it is safe to receive when I have very strong masculine boundaries. Our discernment is our masculine, right? Our noble qualities and our integrity is our masculine qualities. And so that actually helps protect ourselves. So I use that term, and I share this with you. I call it husbanding yourself or midwifing yourself, where
Yeah.
you learn to trust and have discernment on when do you actually open yourself up and be vulnerable, and or when do you actually like lean back. And it's like this cha-cha-cha sovereign dance, I like to say, that we're doing moment to moment to moment. About a week later after I left all of you, I was
Yeah.
teaching at another retreat, and it was actually a beautiful retreat with someone that I met actually through Dr. Joe, who had never
Oh,
hosted
okay.
hosted a women's retreat like this. And it was
Uh-huh.
interesting being there, holding space, and observing myself. Does that make sense? Like witnessing
Mhm.
myself in that space, being able to see the women that have done women's work and able to actually not take things personally, being able to actually roll with the punches, being able to go with the flow and receive other women. Because I think one of the biggest issues we have is in entrepreneurship, but with women in general, is being able to celebrate each other, like genuinely
Mm.
celebrate each other. We may say that we are, but what are we really? What's the inside, woman in our head thinking? What's the little girl in our head thinking? And I always say there's 10 women that live inside of us. There's 10 versions of
Yeah.
us. And
Oh,
they all have something
this
to
is
say.
this is another thing. Can I share that what you were talking?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So when I met Sandy, Sandy was like, yeah, this is Sandy, but there's also Tammy. And when I want to be bad, there's Tammy. I have 10 other character of me. And then I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
What does she mean by that? She's mentally okay, right? So,
She's
but
simple. I don't understand, right? It does sound a
yeah,
little strange.
but after she explained it to me, I'm gonna have Sandy to explain to all of you. It totally makes sense, right? Because we play so many roles, right?
Yes.
There's so many of us. Like, yeah. So you tell them.
Well, and the thing is that there's really, I'm really gonna like let your audience be excited because there's really 20 of us, because we have the shadow side and the sovereign side, right? Because
Oh my god.
we're walking in sovereignty, then we're going to be leading with our heart. So, I'd like to take the archetype work and I put a spin on it. And there's 10 different women that live inside of us. And in the sense of there's that joyful part of us that really is that little girl. I don't use inner child. I like to call her our little girl. I love
Okay.
to talk about Tammy, who you mentioned as that dangerous challenger that is the one that
I
actually,
love it. I just want to let you know when you said that, I was
yeah.
cracking up.
Well,
I wasn't laughing at you. I was
you are,
laughing because I was like, oh shit. Oops. Sorry, on the
yeah.
podcast. Somebody have another character just like myself.
Well, and we all
Because I
have,
have
right?
I
We all
have the Tammy in me too.
Yes, you do. And every single one that's listening does too. And that challenger really is, was the one that Tony met that day, who she's a scrapper. That challenger in us is a scrapper. She's street smart. Every entrepreneur
Mhm.
I've ever met has a lot of this energy, might be leading with it. However, sometimes in our personal relationships, it can be overwhelming, right? There's that
Yeah.
lustful lover piece. There's that piece of us that the champion. There's also one of my favorites is that shy reluctant. A lot of this work came from some of the work with Sheila, where she introduces this more in the erotic realm. But I'm like,
Ugh.
for me though, I was like, that's great. But how do I actually bring feminine embodiment, which most people think that it's all about sensual movement? No, like I wanted to be able to bring this to the world and help women in their everyday as well. I mean, the bedroom, that definitely works, right? Learning how to
No, we need to learn that too.
yeah, right. It's all there. But those 10
All
women,
that.
they're running the show. And when you become, I mean, this is quantum physics. When we become aware of something and then we acknowledge it and then we learn to accept the energy and then we allow, our life becomes a lot more fluid and a lot more fruitful. It definitely becomes a lot more exciting because we're not living in this one-dimensional world and actually compartmentalizing. Right? I'm looking at the platform that we're recording on, and we've got these rectangles, right? So why do we need to have these rectangles? Because if we're literally leading with our feminine, and honestly, I've worked with thousands of women around the world. I've only really met 2 women after they do this quiz of mine that actually truly are in their heart of hearts, their core is masculine. Most of us are wearing a masculine mask where we think that we need to show
Mm.
up so tough, so strong, so guarded. And actually, it's our feminine intuition that all genders have. I mean, if more men had actually actualized and actually embody more of their feminine, their feminine intuition, for example, their compassion, their creativity, their flexibility, their ability to be able to feel into another person, what's better for the world, so to speak, what's just better for that moment. I think the world would be better. Just like I think if we had more women, which I think this is happening now, more women who actually are okay with not going shoulder to shoulder with men, think we need to overpower them. I actually like to say I'm a feminist who really digs men. Like I really think men are great. I was a single mom of a son for years, and I didn't realize how much. I just want to drop this in, if you want to like tease it apart, how much I was actually emasculating my own son. And I know you and I.
No. We talk about this when we're
Okay.
going on our daily ice cream trip.
Yeah.
So me and Sandy, I love ice cream. I have a sweet tooth. So when we were in Croatia, it was super hot. I need my ice cream. So I'm using my ice cream trip as a way to bond. And me and Sandy is my ice cream partner. So
That's
we would
right. The ice
talk
cream
while we
queen.
get ice cream. Yes. And then you did mention about emasculate, because I have a son and I'm a single mom. So that's how we also bonded on that. And you really taught me something very important about not emasculate my son. And I
Yeah.
remember in that conversation, I was telling you, I have a hard time dating because men feel like I was emasculate them. And then I always wondering, how did I do that? Like,
Right.
what do you mean? Yeah. So I'm so glad you bring this up. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's for me, obviously that work I've done over the last decade was really so I could, how do I say it? Our body is a vessel, right? This is a tuning fork. What frequency? What am I emitting out there to the world? And I don't mean to say in this woo woo way, but I mean literally, like meeting you. I want everyone to be enchanted with me, and in a way that I'm better. They're better for the world because they met me, not because necessarily we're talking about sacred she, but just because like there's something about her, kind of like there's something about Mary. And so I didn't always live that way. I didn't really like women, quite frankly, even though I was leading a women's group already, not Sacred She, but this I was where I was working in this jewelry company. I just realized I didn't really, but it wasn't that I didn't like them. I didn't understand feminine women. I thought feminine women
Mm.
were, to your point, were like weak and like get to the point.
This,
You know,
yeah,
it's the
exactly.
point.
Yes.
They're not direct. They feel like they're irresponsible. I'm like, can we hurry up? We've all been there, right? And then
Yeah.
what I wanted to do again, and we'll touch on the emasculation piece, is like, how do I actually work with women to let them understand that we can love up men, even men that aren't ours, in the way that we are complimenting them, the way we're honoring them, the way we let them actually serve us. Now, I'll say this as well. I mean, a lot has changed in the last decade, and my son, who now is 25, he has learned from me, but also some of my
Did
teachers.
you have it when you were 13? What?
Thank you. I really received that. Thank you very much. I received that. But we talk about dating out there in the world, and a lot of women don't know how to receive a man's leadership. Yet my clients will be the first one to say they want to be led, but until we do the work together, they want to be led the way they want to be led. We all want to be led by a man, a masculine man who basically, even if we don't
Yeah,
want to
for
admit it,
sure.
well, we don't always admit it, right? That we actually want to be led, but we think that it's not culturally responsible for us wanting to be led. But I'm telling you, Evie, when I get to know women, whether they're in the group or they're one-on-one or just workshop, most women that I've met really do love the claim. They want to know that they know that they know, right?
Me,
Hello,
me.
that someone is going to provide and protect. And it's interesting
Yes.
where we are now with the provision part, because a lot of women are actually providing more financially than men. So
Right.
even more so, how do we actually honor a man if they're not bringing home more than we are? I've had to really understand and tease apart from myself and also my clients, what does provision mean? Because I used to think it meant that they would provide for me, even though I've always been a provider. I've been working since I was 12 and moved out when I was 16 and started a business when I was 19, right? So, but I've had to learn how to, and it's learned. Again, it's a learned behavior, patterns, belief systems. I was raised not to trust men. My mom raised me that way, to not trust, because she was trying to protect me. So the emasculation piece could even be, comparing him to other people. It could be actually telling him what to do. It could be not allowing him to make his own choices. Again, this works with sons as well. There is a place where there's parenting, where we are going to like give them what needs to happen, but there's also a wide gray area where we actually allow them to make their own mistakes. So I'm kind of weaving in son and man. But at the end of the day, how are we honoring and revering even those little guys, letting them make their own mistakes? I mean, we have
Mm,
a whole generation. We have two generations now of
hmm.
men who don't know how to be men because it's not politically correct.
Yeah.
But yet we're here. These women, all of us, no matter if you work outside the home or in the home,
Right.
we're like, where are they? But yet we help co-create this situation.
You're totally right. And that's what a lot of men be complaining about. And then I think for them, they're also confused by us because they didn't know
Sure.
how
Well,
to react to us, right? Because they wanted to respect us.
yeah.
But I almost, and that's my personal opinion, like I almost feel like when they're trying to do that, they kind of lose that masculine energy to me.
Well, honey, listen, listen, you're very wonderful because I can tell you've done a lot of work. You actually like have that you share your own experience. You don't speak for the masses. I can speak for the
Yeah,
women,
I'm just saying
but
me.
no, but I love it though. I want to honor you in how and your dialect and how you're speaking, because that shows a lot of integrity. It shows you've done some beautiful work. So I want to honor you for that. And I'll speak for women, because I work with so many women around the world, and I don't care what language they're speaking. You're right. But think about this. A lot of men have been raised by single women. They haven't had
Hmm.
a strong masculine energetics in their life, except for the masculine in being a mom. Now, let me just tease this apart for a sec. Being a mother, mother is actually like, she's Mother Gaia. She's nurturing. She is sweet, unconditional love. She is there. She is loving. She's spit shining she's here. But being a mother, like, is actually mothering. The ing is, did you do your homework? Get in the car. How in the heck could you have done that? Why are you dating her? That is a very masculine way that we show up, and we need both. I mean, listen, we are both. The masculine and feminine is not gender specific. I think we have a quiz that we'll give your audience that they can take, and I just teach it very differently. But for me, I had to really honestly control alt delete my entire nervous system and brain to learn something new, because I didn't understand how much my energetics was actually affecting Cameron, my son, and also every man that I've chosen to be in partnership with. And or even just in a work environment, or the butcher, or even the guy that I'm renting, I'm in Colorado right now renting an Airbnb, and how could I honor him even though I was really frustrated that some things weren't as they had promised, but not be, golly gee, but being my queen, have my
Yes.
have my standard, but also be honoring honoring. And so, I mean, even teaching something like this, Evie, I was talking to a client and she goes, something you've taught me is with her son, she's single, and she goes, I will like call him and ask him something about my car. Like if something's broken or something, she goes, I know I could YouTube anything, but there's something about honoring him and asking him, hey, do you know how to XYZ? To allowing herself and us to allow ourselves to know when to lean back and allow someone else to serve us. I mean, it's actually an honor to allow another to serve us in that capacity. It's actually an art of devotion. There's a true,
I
yeah.
I have such a hard time with that because I have a hard time receiving. And for my audience, I'm guilty of that because I always like, no, I got it. I would take care of it. So Sandy, it was like really good point you just brought out. Is actually is an honoring for them to take care of us, right?
Yeah,
To take over. See, I if anything, I was in my head thinking that I don't want to bother him. I
right.
don't want to trouble him. Yeah.
But that's the toxic feminine that we actually don't think we deserve to take up space. That's why I teach women how to rewild who they are and that it's okay to take up space, but not in the way that I used to, which was very demanding and commanding and controlling. I mean, if you would have met me, you wouldn't have thought I was like bitchy, but in
No,
relationship, right? You
you're
wouldn't have
totally
thought that.
not like that.
Right. Well, I've done a lot of work too, but I was the toxic feminine is actually a little manipulative. I mean, I call her Glinda the Good Witch. I mean, like we're like trying to do things for the good, but it's still quite manipulative. And one of the 10 women, by the way, she's that blissful pleaser, and all of us. She's very. She's the mother, by the way. She's the sweet mother, but the shadow side is actually a very codependent version of the woman who doesn't want to bother someone. She will take on more than she
Yeah.
needs to. She is, that codependent energy, which is actually quite selfish because we are giving to get almost, right? Or we're not actually allowing someone to care for us because
Yes.
we say that we don't want to be bothered. But if we dug a little bit deeper,
Uh-huh.
that probably, if I had my druthers, I would say that it has to do with that there's a giving to get. If you allow someone, and I mean you, the collective you, if we allow someone to give to us, then underneath that, depending if we've cleared up those belief systems, we think that we're going to have to give something back to them. So it
Yes.
obligates us. That's the shadow piece. But so we clean that stuff up. I mean, that's just, but honey, that is honestly, that is how most of us have been raised, especially if you've been raised in a very commanding or demanding family. Your parents don't just have to be divorced necessarily, but there's been high expectations placed upon us, which is actually like standard. Our standards are the masculine. They're like the rules. It's how we play within that sandbox is where the femininity comes in, which is why business can actually be quite fun. If we don't have to we should never have to vacation from our business.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't have
Mm-hmm.
to. We should be able to actually play within the field. And yeah, we can get away, but I'm always working because I'm always appreciating where I am. And I know I can literally work anywhere like I am right now. But I mean, literally in the place of appreciating as I'm watching the leaves change here in Aspen. I mean, every day I have this one tree that I'm looking at every day, and I'm watching every day the leaves slowly turn yellow. I go outside and I'm smelling nature. I'm hearing the river as this rolling down downstream. I'm tasting even the way the food tastes differently here because I can go out and pick an apple, which I'm not doing in Florida necessarily. But those are things that I've learned. Those are things that I've learned. And so if we go back to the way that we show up for men, including our sons, are we actually showing up as embodied life? Because we are life givers. The feminine in all of us is life givers. And again, this is not gender specific. However, and this is the same thing with same-sex relationships, because whoever's more masculine, there's something very calming to the feminine nervous system when someone is planted, grounded, and I like to call it like that redwood, right? We feel our nervous system calms
Yes.
down because
Yes.
it's primal for us to be on guard, wondering if this person's safe. So the more that their eyes are darting, the more that a man's fidgeting, in their
Mm-hmm.
seat,
It doesn't make
Whether
me feel safe. Like
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't
even
calm me.
no, even on like a Zoom date. That's why Zoom dating can be a lot of fun. Because you can learn a lot
Right.
about somebody, just how they're holding space for you on screen. But yeah, these are things again I didn't know. So I didn't know these things. So I it's been fascinating too, as I've helped so many women, starting with myself. I mean, this is Earth School. I think that I am my best student. How am I showing up and lighting up the world around me? And not in this, everything's joyful and poppy, but even in my darkness, that wildness that I choose to live in at times, because it is our feminine energy that's going to open up the world. It's the one that we're able to see. It's the majestic, magical wizard in all of us. We're able to actually envision. I know when I get excited, in fact, I'm looking at my eyes; they look really green right now. When I get excited, when I'm in my
Oh,
feminine,
by the way, I love your eyes. I never told you this. Did I tell you this?
oh,
When I'm talking to you, I always looking at your eyes because you have beautiful eyes.
thank you. I do
So
receive that.
just what is it?
Yeah. And I will give you always a little tip to a great practice. I love to give practices because we practice piano, we practice yoga, but even just saying I receive that when someone offers you a compliment, instead of just dismissing it, like to really just feel it. And I receive that versus saying thank you, which is polite, but it isn't embodied as much as saying I receive that. So I truly receive that. And
Thank you for sharing that tip. That's really helpful. Women, listen to that,
yeah,
including me.
because
Yes.
it is. It's very much a way to moment to be able to step into receivership. And listen, I will say this as well, especially in the dating realm, and even the way we may interview someone, or bringing in somebody new for a company. It There's a way that we can be discerned and kind, and feel in our gut when we really become embodied and we know our yeses and know our nos, not from our head, but from our entire body, from, our heart, mind, and soul, where I teach you how your yeses and your nos are going to be so clear that you're just going to know. And the next part is the masculine in us is going to be the part of us that actually gets it done, that's willing to actually speak up and use the voice. People talk about the feminine reclamation of using her voice. Well, first off, she has to feel what it is she even wants to say. Because so many women now are just blurting out using their voice, but they're not even embodied in what they're saying. So they're not believable. We're not trusting the feminine in all of us is not trusting the masculine in them because they don't sound like they actually believe what they're even saying. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's deep. It's very deep. So there's like a BS meter that women already know.
Oh, but can I share what you did
Yeah.
with me
Yeah.
when we in Croatia?
Sure.
So one of the things that Sandy did with me is that you sometimes you say certain things, but do you truly believe in that? So it's kind of like a muscle test. But what she did was actually amazing. She made me stand up and then really start with very simple question, and your body just knows somehow. There was no, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer how you're supposed to move,
Yeah.
but your body just, I'm just talking about my own experience. So when Sandy told me to stand up and she started asking me very basic question, my body just moved a certain way and became a pattern. So when I don't believe something, my body moves a certain way. When
Yeah.
I just know when I just knowing, and I think that knowingness is so
Yes.
powerful. It
Yes.
just it's just that.
Yes, and I've those goosebumps I get when someone speaks truth because I've slowed down enough to be able to listen to what my body's telling me. The kicker is, and I'm still guilty of this, even after all these years of doing this work and teaching it, is I can go back and go, oh, there it is. That's that moment when I really didn't listen to what my body was telling me. And I don't mean like the stomach pain. I mean, that's obvious. We have a headache, our body's telling us something. What the problem is, we generally pop a pill or something like that instead of letting our
Yeah.
body really work it out.
It wasn't like that
No, it wasn't like that at
when you
all.
had
No,
to, yeah.
no, not at all. And there's a way even deeper. And we just had a little bit of time together, but there's a way even without even having to stand up and move that you train yourself to be able to know that you know that you know that you know that you know to infinity what it is and what it isn't. The second part of that is actually having the discernment of knowing when to speak up and when to lean back. And, right. And
That's the
that's,
second part.
yeah, that's the wobbly giraffe legs. I mean, so many people want to work on their feminine, which actually doesn't make sense. You don't work on being feminine. You already are feminine. You already are
Right.
masculine. The difference is you've just been working a different muscle. We want you to actually shift that. And, a lot of that can even just start with just celebrating yourself. I mean, this is kind of funny, but I'm sitting at my little makeshift desk here. But I always, like I have pom poms, like to celebrate myself and to celebrate clients. All of my clients have pom poms because most of us, the older that we get, we move so far away from actually that childlike joy, that unabashed childlike joy where we're excited about the little things and the big things. One of the things I just loved about you naturally is that you already embody so much of that childlike spirit. And you were actually surprised when I was pointing things out. And maybe it was because you felt safe with me to express her. I don't know. But I really wanted to acknowledge that because at the imagine it from a dating standpoint, or you're coming home to your partner, whether you're married or not, and it's been a long day, whether you've been home with the kids or you've been dealing with employees or whatever it is. And if we haven't done the work, whether the office is like a 2-hour commute or it's literally in the next room, depending on your work situation, is there's a way that we can actually soften soften ourselves in a way where we can be in receivership and meet our partner, meet our kids right there. So they actually get to meet and have the privilege of seeing juicy mommy, juicy partner, and not just the delicious one that we want to take to bed, but the one that actually makes art out of everything. Like washing dishes can even be something artful. So, but that is a practice. I mean, most of us aren't. The worst thing to do, and I'm sure your audience probably isn't watching TV, but I can remember years ago, and I don't watch TV either. In fact, I don't know if you can see, but I have the TV here covered up with a sheepskin. Like I just don't even have TVs in my house at home.
Me too.
But they're not very honoring to really. They're honoring to women, but it's so over the top that it actually feels so fake in some ways. The way that we're honoring women now in some ways, it's almost like pushed down our throat that it feels like it's entitlement versus can we teach each other how to actually witness the other person and love them right where they're at? Because that's true feminine energy, loving right where someone is. And being able to actually just be fully expressed wherever we are, whether it's an ouch if someone hurts our feelings. And that may be kind of weird in a work environment, but maybe not, to add some levity to it, to be able to be excited. And whether they're your energetic pom-poms or you literally have your pom-poms, that you're able to actually cheer someone else on. But more importantly, can you cheer yourself on, right? So we'll kind of pause right there so you can like pull some of that apart because that was a lot.
No, I love it. I love it. But again, I don't know if it's because me and you. I totally
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
So
There's so much there. I mean, I just think women, we are so needed. I mean, obviously we're needed as life givers, right? I mean, literally life givers. But whether we ever have a child through our own body or not, we are here to we see things that others don't. And the more that men can actually understand and heal their own masculine energetics and their feminine energetics, they will be better lovers. They'll be better leaders. They'll make more money. I mean, most women actually have worked with me. I'll brag on that. I'll brag that I actually help women make more money with less efforting, because they're actually feeling into things even more, and they're saying their yes and they're saying no. They really are firing those, whether it's their personal life or their business life, they're firing faster because they're honoring who they are. They know who they are, but in a way that actually is so delicious. Does that make sense?
So let me ask this, right? Because this is the business side of me. And, for a while, I always thought feminine energy is irrelevant or make you weak. I don't think that way anymore.
No,
But
you
I'm
don't.
just saying, how does our feminine energy help us in the business sense, right? Because
Yeah.
as a founder, as a CEO, I always I always thought that I need to be masculine to actually succeed in my business. But what you're just saying that actually when you really embrace and work on your feminine energy, it actually make you a better CEO and entrepreneur.
Well,
Why is that? Uh-huh.
I want to back up a minute. I want to make sure, because you actually listen. If we just showed up at the office or whatever the office is in our feminine, bills wouldn't get paid. There would be no benefits. I mean, we cannot just be in our feminine. Okay. So I want to make sure we
Right.
correct it. You do
Right.
need masculine. You do, because our masculine energy, like I said, the masculine is our standard. It is it's our boundaries, right? Someone who is in her toxic feminine has zero boundaries. She's super codependent in the sense that she's only okay if her employees are okay. She's only okay, everything's around her emotions. That's not okay. There's a time there I can feel into my emotions and actually know when to be overly expressed and when not. But I just in my being alone and my energetics, because I have a personal practice at home where I'm able to express myself there. And then I know how to bring it here. I mean, even bringing this to you now, teaching in my masculine, but I also, you could almost, once you get to know me and you know the work, you could witness me when I'm like, oh, there's the feminine, there's the masculine, there it is, right? But I'm holding space in the masculine teaching. However, I am 100% in the feminine too. It's like there's this beautiful weaving. That's why I don't say balancing. Balancing to me, the way I like to share it, that means that there is a yes and a no. Doesn't mean right and wrong, but I'm like, there's a constant weaving that's happening here,
It's
and
like a
you do.
dance.
Yeah, you do. It literally is a dance, which is why I love to use movement. But let me back up. The masculine is going to be, it's the master of time and space. It's the master of time and space. The river I'm looking at here, the riverbed is actually the masculine that's holding everything together, right? It's like our bra. Our bra is the masculine, but the flesh of our breast is actually the feminine, because it's going to like rise and fall depending if we ate too much salt, or if it's our period, or we're pregnant or we're not. I've never used that metaphor before, but that works. But
That work. I get it.
it gets
I
it
get
right.
it.
We all do, right? So,
Yeah.
but the river.
Especially women. We
Yes,
have to.
yes. But the
Yes.
riverbed, and I like to use this when I'm working with couples and men, is that the riverbed is the solidarity. It is solid. It's holding. It's the container. This is the masculine, the glass. The water that's moving, whether it's full or low, this is the feminine. So whether I drink, it was a full glass when I started this with you, but it's still the feminine. The roaring river right now is the feminine. When it's snowing, it's still the feminine. Even when it's icy, it's still the feminine. And our emotions are supposed to be fluid that way. One of the things I love, and I believe it or not, I do love science, even though I'm super feminine in that space. And I don't mean that to sound sexist at all, but I think that when we talk about quantum physics, like I mentioned, to be aware, right? To acknowledge, to accept, to allow. The allowing is that part of the discernment of the masculine and the feminine, because our discernment is all the qualities that we know keep us safe and protected, that provide and protect, whether we're a single mom or, we're a boss. It's the feminine, though, that's letting us know. It's the tickle. Something doesn't feel right. It's that sixth sense. Something's not right. Something's right. Whoa, that feels really good. This will be good for the world. Just like when you created everything you've created, you're like, the world needs more of this. That was your feminine intuition. Your masculine is the one, though, that reached out to investors and da.
Yeah.
But it's their feminine that adds the fuel. Without the feminine, we are burdened. All we have is burden. I know when I talk to someone who's in burnout, they have not tapped into the liveliness of what lights them up about their passion. And so, and again, I don't just mean bubblegum pop. I actually love the 5 essences of the dark feminine. We need more of that. We need the wild version of us, in relationship, whether it's personal or not. I personally think the feminine, because we're able to intuit into someone, the intuition, that we're there to sting someone back to consciousness. The art is how are we doing it? Most of us do it by complaining, criticizing, and comparing. I'm going to teach you how not to do that. I'm going to teach you how to do it literally, simply, sometimes with just how you're showing up. There is an artful way we can communicate. One of the reasons why I like to share this is that with fewer words, and the masculine is when they feel criticized or they hear our complaint, and all of us. You'll notice this now when you're with your women friends, because I know some of your friends who are now friends of mine too. I'm feel blessed to say,
Yes.
but you're with so many women, and you'll notice those that aren't able to accept criticism. That is generally someone who has a wounded feminine energetics. They're not able to
Mm.
actually accept the criticism versus able to go, I can see that part of me. So many of us who may be in mothering energy with men, because maybe we're raised to not love men. And then we're a perfect match for someone who actually may have been mothered a lot as a
Yeah.
child. And so they're looking for that energy. It's like the perfect combination to do deeper work, I'll say, because that last 5% of healing happens in partnership. And that's a whole nother conversation. But I personally believe we're here to help each other rise. Now, that also works in business relationships. Without the masculine energetics of our noble character, getting things done, master time and space, our feminine energetics of creativity and aliveness, feeling into what's better for the moment, that part of us that's like, you know what, no, that feels better. This is better. We need the vitality because that also keeps our employees happy. It keeps our audience
Mm.
happy. But it's the
Yes.
relationship. The relationship is the feminine. It's what do we do with that
Relationship is the
relationship?
feminine.
Yeah.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Relationships are feminine. Yes, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, so there's so much more I want to learn from you. And then I'm sure a lot of women want to learn more about it. And then I think you just said couple too. So even couple can come out to you for advice and to
Yeah.
help. Like what how this do you have another retreat? I know you just did
Yeah.
one. I'm like,
We
Sandy, when you're gonna be on next floor? Start working. I'm just
Well,
kidding.
well, so I actually thank you for asking that too. I work with people in a lot of different fashions. I have my
Mhm.
DIY courses, right, where people can just go online and work on their own. I personally love, when I'm working with people in a whether it be one-on-one mentorship, or I have group programs as well. My signature program is what's called the Sisterhood, and that's just a super way that I'm able to bring in, you know honestly, we're healing a lot of beliefs, but also how to make art with the emotions. I also teach you how to have a sacred relationship vision with your business, sacred relationship
Mhm.
vision with your friendships, and also
Mhm.
obviously with your lover. But there's one-on-one ways to work with me. There's also group programs. I do retreats. Like I'm here and I've several clients coming to see me for intensives, but I'm like I said, I'm always working because I'm always being, but it's not that way. So I love, and a lot of times I don't even actually meet my clients face to face because I've learned how to um, teach others how to be so expressive when we're together online,
Okay.
and then also how to do that in their real life, right? So how we do anything is how we do everything. So there's definitely
Okay.
ways that I can work with others, and I am taking clients, and I mean I'm very discerned in my one-on-one because it becomes I'm holding a masculine pole, and a lot of healing happens with their daddy wounds and their mother wounds. There's a lot of projection because I think healing can be a lot of fun. And even for those that have done a lot of other work, I
Mhm.
end up working with a lot of people who they may have had a lot of therapy or they may not have had therapy, but there's an itch that needs to be scratched. There's something there that they're like, you know what, I've tried all these things, but I'm still feeling dissatisfied. That's why
Mhm.
I love working with women who can do all the things and they think they need
Okay.
to be all the things. But I like to go, but is that really true? And then we determine like, what does a sacred life even look like? Because it might look
Mhm.
very different. Just because there's 32 flavors of ice cream at Baskin Robbins, doesn't mean we can't go taste them all. But then we're gonna
Mhm.
like decide like what is really feeling good to you and what's better
Right.
for the world. So I have so many modalities of people I've worked with because I love variety. So you never quite know, kind of like the week we spent together. That's a
Okay.
little bit of a taste of what you receive from working with me, where you'll start speaking in that way. You're like, oh, wait a minute, how we do anything is how we do everything because you're already showing up differently in how you are, um, even just discerning when do you go to an event, when do you not. How are you? Some of the conversations we've had, I've really picked up on some of your minor shifts that you think are minor, but that 2 millimeter shift can make a huge difference
Huge difference.
in your life
Yeah.
and also how you're showing up in the world and also allowing things to fall away that no longer serve us, but we maybe we hold on
Mm.
to them longer, or maybe we're actually shirking some things that actually need our attention because we didn't feel, not that worthiness piece, that bitch in our head, I'll say. I mean, she's
Mhm.
real. And remember, the brain, I work a lot with the brain. The brain doesn't want to see you happy. It wants to keep you safe. So, and
Mm.
remember, anytime you're feeling an emotion more than 90 seconds, that's a habit. So I'm going to help you break some habits to step into some deeper, some deeper purpose, but also have fun doing it, and unapologetically learn to rewild and stoke the inner fire, as you get to meet those 10 different women. And then when you get to know them, you get to introduce them to your partner, and that gets really fun too.
I don't know. I'm going to scare them away because when you tell
No,
me there was 10 of you, I was
you,
like,
you,
is she joking? She was what?
oh, but you've already met many of them here. You've already met many of them here, so you don't necessarily have to like lead with that, right? But like when I'm working with a client now who's starting to date again after we did a masculine cleanse where she healed her own masculine energy. She's also healed her feminine. We've gotten really clear energetically with a lot of downloads. I use meditation and hypnosis, and you'll never get bored with the work with me. So she knows now what it is that she wants, like her yes, and what it's not. She knows she who must be, like she knows who she is. But she started dating again. And instead of putting her on like a masculine cleanse where she's not dating at all, I'm like, let's just play with these different flavors of the feminine. How do you want to show up? And it's not like putting on a mask.
That's fun. But that's like a role play almost.
It makes dating a lot of fun. And
yes.
And I call that dating intentionally. So yeah, so back to your question, there's a lot of ways to work with me. But what I do is I do a deep dive with you and do an intake to determine like, what is it that you really desire? You might not even know, and it will shift, which is why I end up working with people sometimes for several years, and not because they need it, but they get pregnant. They decide they want to have a baby, and, or I've been invited to so many baby showers and divorce parties and weddings and engagement parties because, we're all in our own season.
I mean, it's just kind of like a sideway, but I remember me and you were talking about it. And then I was saying, my core business is helping people to have baby and people who are having a hard time to be pregnant. And it was really interesting because I was telling you what I do. And you said, a lot of time, the women is not being pregnant is because they don't think they deserve it or something. Yeah. And I was like, huh? Right. So
yeah, it's pretty controversial too. I mean, again, our body is a portal. We are literally being penetrated by everything. I mean, we're being penetrated by society. TV's penetrating us, politics. I mean, trying to get pregnant, we're being penetrated. And if we actually haven't cleaned up that vessel, I don't mean just in a healthy way with the food and what we're eating, but I mean, just do we even believe? And sometimes that's why I say some of our hiccups or our little glitches or the skips in the record may not even be ours. It might be generational. And that's a whole deeper conversation that, you tell that to a woman who wants to have another baby. And I mean, it's controversial, but I've seen it way too many times where I've seen women get pregnant after doing deep feminine work because they actually they really realize that they're worthy of it, and they clean up this beautiful vessel that God's given us. And they actually set up their practice, not waiting to get pregnant. Then they actually already show up as mother, and then they, everything is in God's timing. In my opinion, everything happens as it should. Even that brokenheartedness for all of us who I wanted to have more children and couldn't have more children, it broke my heart. And I've learned how to see the gift in that, and then where else am I actually mothering? So there's all different facets of how that works. But the actual, from what we're talking about with your business, is you're teaching women actually to not just to clean up even the languaging around mother, cleaning up the languaging around receiving, and how do you manifest that? I could go on and on about that. It's really quite
no, but I want to bring this up because this is one thing you brought a different perspective for me, which I never thought of. Yeah. Okay, well, Sandy, I it's almost time, but I wanted to ask you this question, which I always ask every guest coming here. Okay. And then I know you have so many, but what would be one advice you would get the younger self? I know. Especially with you.
I actually had an image of little me at 13, and and Daddy, my parents had split up. They got back together. We moved to a new town, and then they split up again, like very quickly. So I was very disoriented and very much out of my element. And I remember that there was this one guy who was giving me attention, and I just, it was the start of a pattern for me of seeking out love and attention in places because we all want to be appreciated. So I've learned how to love myself. I mean, it sounds so corny, but really how to have a relationship with me, as if literally there is another version of me, like a little version of me. And I actually will ask her, sometimes out loud, which seems crazy, but if I'm alone, or I mean, energetically, like, how does that feel to you? Like, does Troy, if you're listening, Troy, does this guy feel good to you? Like, what do you think about him? Right. And to really understand, to learn that relationship with, I mean, I work with teenagers as well, and teenage girls, because if I would have known what I know now, I would never have developed an eating disorder. Most eating disorders are based on not having control of your life. So where can
Yeah.
you learn how to have the control? So again, being able to have that relationship with ourselves where we're not looking outside ourselves, especially now. I mean, social media. I mean, come on. I mean, I don't care how old we are. That version of all of us that wants to be liked so much is the part of us that needs to validate ourselves, which is why mirror practice is so important, to be able to look another in their eyes. And you and I did this, I think, over ice cream one day, where we're
Yep.
looking at each other, the left eye, and to be able to
Yep.
look at another and be able to breathe her or him in, and without saying a word. I mean, most
Mm-hmm.
couples I work with, when we do a workshop, they're like, I can't tell you the last time we did that. And then I give them practices to take home. So I think it is a matter of just loving who I am, not in that pat way, but actually setting up practices where I'm learning how to talk to her and communicate with her and ask her. The first time I really got to see my little girl, my little girl again. It was in a journey space, and I remember she was like hiding in the back behind a door, and I
Huh.
in my mind, right? And I thought, come on,
Uh-huh.
come and sit by me. And that was when I started this practice and started teaching it, because I actually literally for 6 months allowed myself to intentionally ask her what she wanted for breakfast, and I realized for a really long time
Oh.
I didn't even pay attention to her. I mean, I didn't even pay attention to her. I was too busy in the go mode. And not because I wanted a new car. I recognize now I was attempting to keep myself safe, because when I was little, our house foreclosed. When I was little, our parents divorced. When I was little, all these things happened, which uprooted, my sense of safety. And so my entire life until it wasn't, and still sometimes it's like that if I'm not resourced, is to seek safety, because that's what our body does. So I think for me to answer that question is I would create a deeper relationship with myself, and remember that most of these people that I'm worried about anyway, probably not going to see them again, especially those guys. I mean, there's, again, talk about receiving and having amazing masculine boundaries, and letting somebody actually court me. That was a lot there. I just dumped. But I think being courted and allowing someone to woo and pursue you is so important. So important.
Oh, you make me want to cry because I can see the little you. I don't know why, but I can just see the little
I'll
you
send you a
like
picture of her.
hiding behind
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, she'll be
Yeah.
literally hiding behind me, and, yeah, and the thing is too about this work that I love to teach is that the more comfortable we are in our own skin, not in our head just talking about it, but I mean in the actually embodying it. That's why talk therapy can only do so much. It only scratches the surface. We must, really feel it in order to heal it, but it doesn't have to be in this deep guttural way necessarily, but sometimes it does. I mean, to feel grief is actually a gift. To feel
Yeah.
grief is actually a gift, because it means that we truly, truly loved. Like I really got that
Mm.
when I lost my best friend suddenly during COVID. I mean, I had lost my daddy already, but when I lost Rachel, Sacred She, by the way, is named after Rachel. She just, I felt such loss. And if
Oh.
I had only gone on what my mother had raised me as, which, God bless her, she didn't know any better, I would never have been able to get in touch with how deeply I love that woman and how
Mm.
much my heart longs, for her still. And because on the flip side of that, there's so much joy knowing that I knew Rachel. And
Oh.
does that make sense?
No, I do. I lost my best friend too. So remember we talked about it, and
Yeah.
that's how I started the company. So I'm forever grateful to her.
Yeah.
Um,
Same. Same.
yeah. So
Wow.
I know what you're saying about self-love and you don't need validation for other. It's really having a relationship with yourself. But I just want you to know I see you.
I
So
know you do. I feel seen. And that's what's so beautiful about, having women who really know they know who they are, and they're actually able to actually gift the art of their masculine presence, because seeing someone is the masculine here, and then being able to actually express it masculine, but the feeling that you even want to say it at all is that deep rooted, like, this woman would be better for the world if she actually even heard this. And then you to be so healed to not have to actually have me receive it, because if I didn't receive it, what does that mean about you? It means absolutely nothing, except
nothing.
you're a beautiful soul. But how many of us haven't healed that part of us, and we're taking it all so personally? So
Yeah.
thank you. I see you too, and I feel your heart. And I mean, you are this incredible, gorgeous, like this gritty, powerful, passionate, loving, gooey, mushy. I mean, I honestly think there's so many women, including yourself and me, that have been so misunderstood by how we've lived our life, including the mistakes we've made. That they may view them as mistakes, but honestly, we were just living out loud. And I think the key is that, I mean, for myself included, is I was talking to my mentor about it today. Is what am I doing and who am I being, even in my stubbing of my toe, even in those moments
Mm,
when, I wish I could have made a different choice. But if I could have made a different choice, I would have. We all are showing up, Evie, exactly where we need to be, and the energy vibe that we're in. And that was really hard for me to accept. It's super deep, knowing that it couldn't have happened any other way. And
thank you. I received that and I needed that. So it's
yeah.
almost like, yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. And for everybody, I mean, listen, I'm literally looking at myself, telling this to myself, because I can, going through something in my personal life. I'm like, gosh, if I would have turned left or right, it's like, no, you co-created this, including, this
Yes.
little mess, but it's your choice what you choose to make of it. And it doesn't mean we have to immediately go out and make a message of it. And my slogan is make a message out of my mess. And also understand that could be a trauma response if we do it too fast and we actually haven't allowed ourselves to, you know, alchemize it and feel it. And so I know you and I could talk for hours and hours, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to see.
No, it's such an honor to have you to be on my podcast
Yeah.
because I really feel like it really helped many other women to listen to this because I'm learning so much from you, right?
Thank you.
So I wanted to share that with other. So yeah,
Well, it was a pleasure, and I know I'll be talking to you soon. So, my dear
I
sister,
know.
and yeah, so yeah, thank you for the opportunity to introduce my work in a different way to your audience. I feel so seen.
And then I would put your bio and handler
Yeah.
on the podcast so people who wanted to reach out to you again. So
I love
perfect.
that, and I'd love the opportunity. I have a goal, honestly, to serve 12 million lives through the work, and I mean, whether it's a mother who's working with her family or it's a couple, but generations are affected by what we do, and it's a ripple effect. So thank you for being a part of that 12 million, and how you're serving your community and your son, and that partner out there and all the things.
Thank you.